LSU adds a massive commit for the class of 2026. We'll tell you about him. Locked on LSU. Let's go.
You are Locked on LSU, your daily podcast on the LSU Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Okay, let's get it. It is Locked on LSU, your team every day. I'm your host, Matt Moscona. Thanks so much for making us your first listen. We're free, available wherever you get podcasts, of course, on YouTube as well. So please subscribe. As always, one of the fastest ways to help us grow is by leaving your comments below. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. LSU will open up the 2025 baseball season on Friday. Jay Johnson has announced his starting rotation. We'll get to that in just a smidge. Also, an LSU defensive back that moved to running back is now moving to quarterback. We'll connect the dots here in just a smidge. But Thursday ended up being a pretty productive morning for Brian Kelly, Joe Sloan, Brad Davis, and the future of the LSU football program because Brysten Martinez announced his commitment to LSU. Now, I know. Increasingly, many of you are becoming less impressed with commitments and more impressed with signatures. And I understand that a lot of people aren't necessarily going to do backflips over commitments because of what happened with Bryce Underwood, and we understand what the NIL culture may bring. However, I would present it to you this way. Wouldn't you rather have the commitment than not have the commitment? And would you rather have the commitment of a local guy for the 2026 class, an elite local prospect for 2026 this early in the process so he can effectively continue to add as a Pied Piper and a recruiter for your class? Yes, it certainly beats the alternative. Let me tell you about Brysten Martinez, then I'll tell you why this is significant, how he fits. So if you're not familiar, Brysten Martinez is from East Ascension. For those who are unindoctrinated, East Ascension is just southeast of Ascension Parish, is the neighboring parish of East Baton Rouge. It's at EA is 20 minutes from LSU's campus. So this is a local kid in every way that it's local. But not only is Brysten Martinez local from East Ascension, home of Glenn Dorsey, he is a massive prospect, figuratively and literally. In the literal sense, he's 6'5", 290 pounds, and he's finishing up his junior year of high school. Again, he's the 2026 prospect, so yet to play his senior year. So this is an early commit, almost a year in advance of when he'll sign. He'll sign next December. So 10 months in advance of signing day, he's announced. And this is a guy, 6'5", 290, is one of the top prospects in the country. So when you look at Brysten Martinez in the composite, okay, so this is the combination of On3, 24/7, ESPN, and Rivals. He is the number 59 overall player in the country at any position. He, in the composite, is the 8th best offensive tackle and the 5th best player in Louisiana. ESPN ranks him as the number 32 overall prospect in the country. That's the highest. On3 has him at 48, Rivals 91, and then 24/7, 128. So 3 of the 4 services have him as a top 100 player. In the composite, he's number 59. So this is a major national prospect who has offers from everyone. So he was considering Oregon and Texas A&M. He's got offers from Tennessee and Penn State and Georgia and Florida State and Florida and Oklahoma and everybody. Okay. Big prospect. Now, remember also that 2026 in Louisiana, this is something you're going to hear us say consistently. 2026 in Louisiana is one of those for the ages kind of bumper crop type years in the state. Remember, Jakeem Stewart, the defensive tackle out of St. Aug, then Edna Carr, was supposed to be in the 2026 class. He reclassified, signed with USC, but even without Jakeem Stewart, Lamar Brown, the number 1 prospect in the state of Louisiana for 2026, is the number 11 prospect in the country, the number 1 offensive lineman. Blaine Bradford, the number 16 prospect in the country, the number 1 safety. Richard Anderson, the number 40 prospect in the country, the number 2 defensive tackle. He's already an LSU commit. Aiden Hall, the number 42 prospect in the country, already an LSU commit. And then Brysten Martinez, the number 59 prospect in the country, now an LSU commit. And then there's, of course, Jabari Mack out of Destrehan, who is the number 83 prospect in the country. So you have 6 top 83 prospects, 6 prospects in the top 83 of the country from Louisiana. And by the way, all of them that I just mentioned are from within an hour of LSU's campus. U High is on LSU's campus. Catholic High is 5 minutes away. Edna Carr, which is where Anderson and Hall both go, is an hour away in New Orleans. And Brysten Martinez from EA, as we just mentioned, is 20 minutes away. 3 of those 5 now are already committed. And LSU in the industry projections, 97% to land Lamar Brown and 96% to land Blaine Bradford. So over the next 10 months, this is going to become repetitive. And I've probably said it a bunch, and you've probably already heard me say it a bunch, especially if you're an everydayer. So thank you for that. 2026 is one of those classes where if you get all those guys to stay in Louisiana, you get the best players in the state. That is the cornerstone upon which championship rosters are built. We reference 2001 all the time. The cornerstone of the 2003 National Championship, Michael Clayton, Marcus Spears, Andrew Whitworth, Marquise Hill, all those guys from that 2001 class, Louisiana guys, they all decided to play at LSU. They won a championship. We could talk about the 2011 signing class with Odell and Jarvis and Freak Johnson and Lyle Collins. Like, you can go look at the 2019 championship, and even just the guys from around, within an hour of LSU's campus, from Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Patrick Queen, all guys from Louisiana that were top-tier players in the state that they got to stay home and were the cornerstone of a championship team. 2026 can be that. Now, the caveat is the thing that a lot of you are worried about, which is, well, what if they show up and then they transfer? Okay, what if you got them committed now and they don't sign? All of that is nothing that we can control today on February the 13th, the year of our Lord 2025. What LSU can do is their dead level best to go recruit all these guys, to get them committed and to build a great class. Because Brian Kelly's continued to say he wants to build through the high school ranks and supplement through the portal. And this is the way to do it. This is the way to do it, especially in years like this where you have a bumper crop in Louisiana to get the best players in the state to stay home. So Brysten Martinez commits to LSU. This just a week after Jerylan McCoy, the defensive lineman out of Tupelo, again, an out-of-state kid, decommitted. But you look at LSU for the class of 2026, they're now back up to 6 commitments. When McCoy decommitted, they went down to 5. Now that you've got Brysten Martinez committed, you're back up to 6. So Anderson, Hall, Martinez, 3 top 100 prospects in the country, all from the state of Louisiana, all committed. And then there's the offensive line piece of it all as well. When you look at 2025, we know LSU's replacing 4 starters, right? You're losing both your tackles and Will Campbell and Emory Jones. And then you're also losing both your veteran guards and Garrett Dellinger and Miles Frazier. Right? So you're losing 4 starters. And then also DJ Chester isn't going to play center next year. So because LSU knew they were trying to compete for a championship this year, they went into the portal. They've added 2 plug-and-play starters right away. You got Braylon Moore at center from Virginia Tech, and Josh Thompson, who likely is going to play guard at LSU from Northwestern. So you've got a couple of guys there that are plug-and-play starters. Chester can play as well. You need to find answers at tackle. But remember, after 2025, when you go into 26, you're losing Braylon Moore and Josh Thompson. They're out. So you're losing those 2 starters. Now, hopefully, as this season goes along in 2025, you develop Tyree Adams, who will return. You develop Weston Davis, who will return in 2026. DJ Chester in 2026 hopefully would be a 3-year starter by that point. So hopefully you have some depth and experience, but you're also very and maybe there's a couple of spots open, starting spots open, and you go back into the portal and address that again. But there is, of course, the opportunity for young guys to play. And Brian Kelly and Brad Davis have shown that. When Will Campbell and Emory Jones showed up as true freshmen and they were the best options LSU had, they played. So, yes, there's an option for those guys to play. In 2025, I think there's a chance we could see Carius Kern, Solomon Thomas win an interior job, or at least give you meaningful reps and meaningful snaps playing interior offensive line. Not saying that's going to happen, but it could happen. But even if you look toward 2026, you can see a world where you've got Chester as a 3-year starter, Carius Kern, former 5-star, Solomon Thomas, 5-star, Weston Davis, Tyree Adams returning, and then you're adding on top of it, hopefully, Lamar Brown, the number 1 offensive lineman in the country, and now Brysten Martinez, the number 5 offensive tackle in the country, a top 60 overall prospect in the country. So this is big in every way it can be big. It's a local kid. It's a major national prospect. It helps you continue to have the Pied Piper effect of this great class in Louisiana to start building early in the way Brian Kelly wants to continue building his roster. Build through the high school ranks, supplement through the portal. Well, you go get a kid from 20 minutes down the road who's a national prospect that has offers from everyone to commit 10 months in advance. That's a very good thing any way you want to consider it. So Brysten Martinez becomes the 6th commit for LSU's 2026 class. As it develops, we'll certainly tell you more. A giant development around LSU is that they've got another quarterback, and they didn't have to look far to get it. As a matter of fact, he was already on the roster. We'll talk about that next. It's Locked on LSU, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel. The live betting feature keeps it every moment of the game exciting. I especially love that during basketball season because lines change so fluidly. So sometimes if there's a game I'm on the fence on or it's a tight line, I may wait for it to tip off and see if one team goes on a spurt. Maybe you can get great in-game value if you live bet. FanDuel allows you to do that. So right now at FanDuel, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Quarterback has been a major talking point at LSU over the last 4 months. I guess it's always a major talking point, but we know what's happened with the Bryce Underwood situation when he decommitted in November and flipped to Michigan. And when that happened, it forced LSU to take an unorthodox look at building up the quarterback room again. And they've taken another unorthodox step to doing that. Juwan Johnson is now a quarterback on LSU's roster going into spring. If you're not familiar with Juwan Johnson, I'll sort of give you the quick reminder. So Juwan Johnson was a quarterback out of LCA, Lafayette Christian Academy, and he was the most productive high school quarterback literally in the history of Louisiana high school football. All he did was set records during his time at LCA. Juwan Johnson, actually, I'll come back to that in a second. So Juwan Johnson was a quarterback at LCA, signs with LSU as an athlete, comes onto campus to play defensive back, and then early in his freshman season here in 2024, remember what happened? John Emery tore his ACL. Trey Holly never got eligible because of his legal situation. So LSU was very thin at running back. They needed bodies. Caden Durham emerged, which was great. You had Josh Williams as a veteran. And Caleb Jackson never really came around here in his sophomore year. So they needed bodies, and they ended up moving Juwan Johnson to running back. And he ended up contributing at running back for LSU throughout his freshman season with the Tigers. He played, I'm pulling up his box score, he played in 13 games. He had 7 rushing attempts for just 14 yards. He did catch 5 passes for 22 yards and a touchdown. So he was on the field, despite not even playing running back in spring ball or in fall camp, not moving there to the middle of the season. They still gave him opportunities, in limited opportunities, because Caden Durham was obviously fantastic. Well, now Juwan Johnson, with the new roster being listed, with the Tigers going into spring, Juwan Johnson's listed as a quarterback. And there's a very obvious need there for spring. I'll remind you, course, you've got Garrett Nussmeier coming back, and you've got Michael Van Buren coming in from Mississippi State. But the other quarterback was Colin Hurley. Well, Colin Hurley was in an auto accident, and when Brian Kelly met with reporters a week ago and gave an update on Colin Hurley, Brian Kelly said that Hurley was back home in Jacksonville still recovering. Well, if he's back home in Jacksonville recovering, then he's not going to class. I mean, you can connect some dots here, right? And you got to be in Baton Rouge to be able to go through spring practice, which starts in about a month from now there at the beginning of middle of March. So if you don't have Colin Hurley for spring, and I'm being presumptive, I don't know if you have Colin Hurley for spring. Okay, Brian Kelly hasn't disclosed that. Says he's making progress, and they want him to be healthy and all that stuff. But what we know definitively is you have two guys, Nussmeier and then Michael Van Buren coming in. And that's it. Because Colin Hurley is obviously recovering. And then Emil Picarella, who LSU is taking as a preferred walk-on, won't be with the team until June. So you got two. Remember, Ricky Collins is gone. A.J. Swan is gone as well. What we don't know is if Juwan Johnson will stay at quarterback after spring. Let me remind you about Juwan Johnson. And this wasn't just a guy who, as a high school quarterback, was just an athlete playing quarterback. Make no mistake about it. He was a great athlete playing quarterback, but he wasn't just a guy that was out there running like the split back veer. He set a Louisiana record with 14,451 total yards and 171 touchdowns. Let that marinate, okay? It's over 40 touchdowns a year throughout your high school career. 171. He's a four-star prospect. Even though he didn't play cornerback, he was the number 9 cornerback in the country and a top 10 prospect in Louisiana when he signed with the Tigers a year ago. LCA went to 4 straight state championship games. In the 2023 state title game, he put up 457 yards, 270 passing, and 187 rushing. So, yes, he, as a junior, by the way, in 2022 in the championship game, he put up 595 and 5 touchdowns. He broke Brock Berlin's Louisiana record for total offense in a state quarterfinal win. He broke Nick Brissett's record for total touchdowns. He's incredible. He finished his prep career with over 10,000 passing yards and 4,000 rushing yards. So it's not like he was just a runner playing quarterback. He threw for over 10,000 yards in his high school career. So there's ability. Does that ability translate as a quarterback at the major college level? Probably not. Because if it did, he would have been recruited as a quarterback. But major programs recruited him as a defensive back, as an athlete to play him there. Now he was playing running back for LSU last year. So this is a move certainly bred out of necessity. It will be, and I commend Juwan Johnson for his willingness to be versatile. Again, played quarterback in high school, comes to LSU, is playing cornerback. And honestly, we saw him in fall camp last year playing the star position at times as well, but playing defensive back, moves to running back, and now he's moving to quarterback. This does have a Russell Shepard feel to it. And for the younger fans, maybe who don't remember Russell Shepard or remember exactly how that went, it's weird that I have to qualify that now, but I understand that it's been a long time. Russell Shepard signed with LSU in the 2009 class, and he was the number 1 quarterback in the country. But he was never really going to play quarterback at LSU. Like, had he gone and played quarterback for Chip Kelly at Oregon in that offense, it probably would have worked. But he came to LSU, and they gave him a shot at quarterback, and then they put him at running back, and they put him at receiver, and they moved him all around, and he never really found a spot where he settled. And so they really didn't maximize him. But he was such a great athlete. He played receiver, went off to the NFL, and ended up playing almost a decade in the NFL because he was that talented of an athlete. But that staff really mismanaged him. It feels similar here. I'm not suggesting they're mismanaging Juwan Johnson, but they got to find, the point is, if you want to maximize him, you have to find a home for him. And so there's 2 parts of this. Yes, you want to maximize an incredible athlete. So find a spot for him and let him get all the reps there. The other part of it is you got to have quarterbacks. Like, you can't go into spring with just Nussmeier and Michael Van Buren. If for nothing else, because you need quote unquote camp arms, right? Like, you can't stress those two guys by making them throw literally every pass of spring practice. So there is that component of it where this might be a move that they're making just for spring to have another body at quarterback during spring. Now, of course, you'll have walk-ons as well, who can throw the ball for you if you need them to, but it's a sticky spot that LSU is in, and this was all sort of all manifest what's happened here at quarterback because of the Bryce Underwood situation. And I don't mean to rehash the whole thing, but remember, the idea was you had Nussmeier, and then you had Ricky Collins, A.J. Swan, and Colin Hurley. Well, then you sign Underwood. That was the idea. And you always anticipated someone would leave, but you'd get Nussmeier back for 25, which happened. And so if Collins and Swan were still going to leave, fine. But you would have had Nussmeier, Hurley, Underwood, where Nussmeier was the guy this year, and then next year, very likely, Underwood wins the job, and you would hope is a 2 or 3 year starter. Well, when Underwood flipped and you didn't sign a quarterback for 2025, you had to go get a quarterback, so you went and got Michael Van Buren out of the portal, and now Colin Hurley's injured, and you look ahead, you added a body in Emil Picarella, who might be able to grow and develop, but worst case is a good program guy and a sort of camp arm, so to speak. But it's forced LSU, when they thought they had the next 6 years at quarterback settled, because after that, after Underwood, you were hoping in the class of 2027, you'd sign Elijah Haven from Dunham, who's the number 1 quarterback in the country for 2027. He could sit for a year in 27, then start 28, 29. That was the plan, right? As you map it out. Well, as they often say, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. So it's forced LSU into a different approach at quarterback. I'll be interested when Brian Kelly speaks on it, if he talks about Juwan Johnson just moving there for spring out of necessity because of Colin Hurley's injury, or if they're planning on keeping Juwan Johnson at quarterback, and if that is potentially an option under center for the Tigers. But all that will be decided in due time. What we do know is Juwan Johnson is listed as a quarterback on LSU's roster. LSU's got plenty of starting pitching on their roster, but Jay Johnson did, in fact, announce his starting rotation. You'll hear from the coach why he went with the rotation he did as we wrap up Locked on LSU, your team every day. As we wrap up today's episode of Locked on LSU, we are less than 24 hours away from opening day out at Alec Box, the 2025 season. And Jay Johnson did, in fact, announce his starting rotation, and it will be Cade Anderson, game 1. It'll be Anthony Ianson, the transfer from UC San Diego, in game 2. And then it'll be Chase Shores in game 3. Here was Jay Johnson on why Cade Anderson's getting the ball in game 1.
He's obviously really talented. I think it would have been a hard get to college, had he not got hurt in high school and had that injury. But I think the story is what he did from the end of last season. I mean, he finished the season great, in the postseason, SEC tournament and NCAA tournament, and then really devoted himself in the weight room over the summertime, transformed his body, elevated the pitchability. Coach Eski's done a really good job with him. It's not surprised that pairing of Coach Eski and Cade has gone well.
Excited to see a guy with a reported 4-pitch mix from the left side get up and go. We've talked a good bit about Cade Anderson, y'all. He's a guy who showed up a year ago and was the number 1 pitcher in the state of Louisiana, and he was so good in the non-conference. Again, shout out to the everydayers. Go back a couple episodes, and we talked about Cade potentially being the Friday night ace, and I went through a lot of that. If you want to go catch that full episode, you can. But to simplify it, Cade Anderson, when he faced non-SEC teams, was awesome. When he faced SEC teams, he just couldn't get outs. So has he turned that corner? He's got 3 weeks in the pre-conference, and then you have the opportunity to dip your toe in the water in conference play, because your opening weekend in SEC play a month from now is Missouri coming to the box. There's no gimmies in the SEC, but if there is a favorable matchup, it's opening at home against Missouri. So an opportunity there for Cade Anderson. And then what to expect from Anthony Einson and Chase Shores earning their spots in the rotation?
With Anthony, there's a lot to like. Strikes, high-level pitchability, composure. I could feel him smelling the season, so to speak. Like he's operated like a veteran. I think he got done what he needed to get done in the fall, but it just kind of kept going like that. And really happy to have him here, and think he's going to be a really good pitcher for us. And then with Chase, again, I've seen enough strikes and like where the health's at, like how he's gone about his business. I feel like we've had some good improvement here over the last month, and feel like he's ready to go. Yeah, and so
tons of reasons to be excited about both these guys. Einson coming in from UCSD, one of the top portal pitchers in the entire country, electric stuff that has scouts drooling, and then Chase Shores. Think of the embarrassment of riches that LSU has when a 6'8", 250-pound pitcher who throws 100 is your number 3. And that's not even counting a guy like Zach Cohen from Wofford, who was their ace a year ago, or Jacob Myers from Nichols, who was one of the top strikeout pitchers in the country a year ago. You've got such an embarrassment. William Schmidt, one of the top pitchers in the country to show up on campus. You have so many arms and so many options. The challenge for Jay Johnson and Nate Yeske is finding the guys in their best roles now as LSU pushes off from the dock here at the start of the 2025 baseball season. And I'll remind you again, it never finishes out like it starts. It never does. Last year, Thatcher Hurd was supposed to be your Friday night ace coming off the College World Series performance that was so good. It just never manifested for him. Luke Holman ended up being your Friday guy for the bulk of the year. By the end of the season, Gage Jump was your best arm, along with Griffin Herring. So it never finishes like it starts. This is just the beginning, and it's one of the reasons I love baseball. Baseball is an evolution. It's 56 games over the regular season to see who fits best where, to win as many games as you can, to make sure that your path to the College World Series runs through Alex Box Stadium. And then once you get to Omaha, hope you play your best ball over 2 weeks in June. And if you do, you get to hold up a trophy. And this Tiger team has enough talent to be there at the end holding up the trophy. Jay Johnson, Nate Yeske now had the task of putting it all together. And Yeske's another important piece. Remember, this is the first time since Jay Johnson has been the head coach at LSU that he's had the same pitching coach in consecutive seasons. After each of his first 2 seasons, he had to replace his pitching coach who left for a head coaching job. So Yeske now back for his second year in Baton Rouge. After you had a record number of pitchers drafted and a lot of turnover, it's good to have the consistency with your pitching coach, and Nate Yeske back for another year. Tigers and Purdue Fort Wayne on Friday out at the box. 2 o'clock scheduled first pitch to open up the season. We'll keep an eye on the skies this weekend. A lot of inclement weather projected in Baton Rouge. It could mess with some of the start times, but it's baseball. Y'all were fired up for it. We'll be here talking about it all season long on Locked on LSU. Hey, thanks so much for making it as your first listen. Now for your second listen, how about you go check out my guy Chris Gordy with Locked on SEC. You can get it on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. If you're on podcast, please subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Rate us, leave a review. If you're on YouTube, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so you're notified whenever we post a new video, and let a friend know if they love the Tigers. We got you here every single day for Locked on LSU, your team every day.